Warning: this episode contains discussions about sensitive mental health topics, which some viewers may find distressing. If you or someone you know needs support, please reach out to a trusted resource or contact a crisis hotline in your area. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Beacons of Balance. I'm one of your co-hosts, Arlene, and this is my beautiful other co-host, Joanne.
Hi, everyone.
Our beautiful guest speaker. This is wonderful Dr. Adele Ryan McDowell, who is a psychotherapist with more than 30 years experience and the teacher of meditation, intuitive development, and psycho-spiritual issues, international workshop presenter, and shamanic energy healer. Adele's work focuses on helping clients find hope and balance in the face of crisis, trauma, and grief. Clients struggling with addiction, as well as those moving through profound life changes such as grief and health challenges. Adele's work integrates psychology with the big picture spirituality to help clients move through crisis and restore balance by assessing core soul issues to discover and find comfort in their authentic selves. Adele also, on top of this, has published several books, and one of them is Making Peace with Suicide, a book of hope, understanding, and comfort. And actually, this is the topic that we'll be discussing today, is suicide. So it's a somber topic, but one that I believe needs to be addressed, especially now. There's so much depression, so many fractured families, so much anger. It's hard.
Right.
Adele's going to share things.
So thank you for that beautiful intro, Arlene. And Adele, it's always great having you back here. You are doing some amazing, amazing work. Thank you for that. So tell us, Adele, how did you get interested in the topic of suicide?
You know, when you put the pieces together, I had a suicidal mother, but you would think that would lead me there, but it didn't initially. In my senior year in college, they were forming the first volunteer group of the suicide hotline at New York Hospital Cornell Division. And I ended up being accepted as a volunteer. This was not a paid thing. We worked 12-hour shifts like we were interns, right? And I ended up being the one who seemed to get all the calls, right? And the police would bring the men to the hospital, and they wanted, most of them rent. Most of the guys, it was all guys, and they wanted to meet me. And when I was with them on the phone, I did something that I don't do now, which was I would lie. Are you going to call the police? Oh no! But of course, that was part of my mandate. The police had to be to get them to a safe place, and they would bring them to the hospital. I don't do that now. I would tell you, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. Anyway, I did that. And then years later, I'm presenting at a shamanism conference. One of the women I meet, we become very friendly. She's another psychologist. And I got a phone call one day, and they say, Adele, Jane died. I said, what do you mean Jane died? And I knew she'd been in the hospital I knew her mental health issues. Even as a psychologist, she had stuff to deal with, right? And people were saying, oh, no, she wouldn't have died by suicide. And Jane came to me and talked to me from the other side and said, oh, yes. She said, I didn't have the energy to make it happen with a car accident, and I didn't want anybody else to go. But I needed to go out. It was my time. I have work to do on the other side. I said, are you busy? She goes, I'm really busy, and I'm doing what I need to do. As a result of Jane's death and trying to make sense of it, and how I made sense of it is understanding with mental illness when we're in the 3D place, the thinking becomes very narrow. People I've worked with, I had one man who talked to me as he's climbing a bridge in New York City to jump. Happily, he did not. But people get in a desperate place of pain, right? It's a terrible place to be. Depression, of course, exacerbates it. Substance abuse. And then the world is tough. And if you've lost money, if you've lost family, if you've lost standing, if you feel alone, and often the thinking is they'll be better off without me. So that is my long-winded answer that how I got into this is primarily my colleague Jane's death by suicide. And that led me to write the book and do all the, and in writing the book, I did interviews with people who had attempted suicide, people who lost family members to suicide, people who thought about suicide. Like that.
It's a wonderful book for people to have and to have in their library. We'll have all that information below. So Adele, going back, why do you think there's such a prevalence of suicide in today's world?
Well, you know, you said in your opening, Arlene, you know, the world is very divided and fractured. We don't have that strong sense of family that other generations have. There's so much comparison stuff going on, which is exacerbated by social media. You know, so many young people see stuff on social media. When you're a teenager, your brain is informed. What you want is badly to fit in. And if you're not fitting in and you feel that you're not okay and whatever it is meant to be okay, you get to that place, right? And your emotions and your hormones, right? And life is tough. And then if you're sad and angry and you're drinking too much or drinking too much, it's the next step sometimes. It's a hard world. Also, but let's look at it from a soul place too. Okay, just another place where from a soul place, people raise their hand and say, this is how I'm going out. This is how I'm going out. Or I came in with this I think suicide's biggest lesson is teaching us compassion. You know, but with suicide, family members are wrecked beyond belief, and family members have a higher probability of taking their lives by suicide as well, once you've lost someone to suicide.
So Adele, you know, one of the things that was always on my mind is how are we supposed to respond, you know, to this? Because I had a cousin that committed suicide. I know what that did to the family. And everyone has a different experience.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to update your language just a tad bit here, Joanne. We don't say commit suicide anymore, and I'll tell you why. Because years ago, and there might be still a few places in the world where it's against the law to take your life by suicide. And just going back to even further, the wonderful Catholic Church during medieval times, and there were serfs and whatever, and a lot of them were so hardworking, they were taking their life by suicide. And so the church said, if you take your life by suicide, we are coming and taking all your worldly goods. So your wife and your children will starve and they'll lose everything to prevent people from taking their lives by suicide. Right. And it is someone I admire very much. I'm not going to mention his name, but he is a psychologist, and I know that he doesn't like fundamental stuff based on where he grew up and everything else, but he wrote a book and many books. One of the books was about how suicide was terrible and it was a sin, you're going to be punished. That kind of stuff makes me crazy. So we go back to the soul level. We all come in for a lot of reasons, right? And we come in here to teach, to learn, to stretch our hearts. You want an advanced course in something on a soul level, live through a loved one dying by suicide. It is awful. It is murky. The guilt. People. So one woman I spoke to, her family never told people how her father died. They just said it was a heart attack. Then her husband, after serious illness, and he was never alone, but this one day he was alone for 20 minutes, and they'd done everything they did. The hospital said, yes, you don't have to have food anymore. But he took his life. So she lost her husband and her father both by suicide. And for reasons, totally different reasons, right? But people don't want to talk about it. They're embarrassed and they feel like they're guilty. If I had done something better, they wouldn't have made this choice. But understanding when people are suicidal, their thinking, again, is so small. It is so small. And it is not always logical. It is fueled by all those competing emotions.
Actually, we had someone on, another speaker who she went through that with her husband, found him.
Yeah.
She said what society does. I mean, they brought her in, the police bring you in.
Right. Yes.
To question you, and they make you feel
like you're responsible.
Yes. Right. That you're responsible. She said it was horrific. What can we do or say to a loved one who is suicidal that you talk to? I have a lot of now getting older, and people that are especially
Oh,
old,
yeah.
they're saying, and all of us know words are very powerful. And I had a close friend, and she was saying, I can't take this anymore. She was in a lot of pain for a lot of medical.
Right.
She didn't like what was going on in the world. And I said to her, this is another thing for people to understand. I said, please, your words are very powerful. Don't, reword, don't say that. And she was gone 2 weeks later. I mean, it was suicide, but she passed.
Right, but she was at that end. And curiously, I'll say something very inflammatory here, is that people who are older are like, where can I get a suicide kit? I've been asked that question. Where can I? I'm like, I have no idea where you can get a suicide kit, because people, especially the boomers, want to be able to control things when they go in, when they go out, right? And they want to be able to control it, right? So, but tell me what your question was, because I'm going to go off on a tangent here.
I said, if we're around loved ones or friends that say they are suicidal.
Oh, right.
What would you advise? Say?
First, you the best gift you give someone is just listening with your open heart, and you're not trying to fix them, because Mother of God, that's just going to send them down under, right? They're not, you're just like, okay, all right, you're feeling, I'm so sorry. You can ask, how can I help, whatever. But one of the things that I recommend to family members is you need to expand the circle. And what I mean by that is other support, because the family members get exhausted. If they deal with somebody who has that profound emotional irregularities where they're slamming doors, destroying furniture, running with knives, and doing stuff, they've been in and out of the hospital, what have you. They're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? And for anybody, whether it's, you want to expand the circle, you want other people to know you're in a fragile place. Okay. All right. I'm so glad you had the courage to tell me you're in a fragile place, right? Then you look to see whether it's a social worker, whether it's a therapist, whether it's best friends, whether who they need. You want to expand the circle. You want to educate other people around them in terms of this is serious. Because when people talk about it, as you say, words are very important, and they're saying something. And at the moment, it might be, I don't want to live anymore right now, as opposed to the rest of my life. Or it may be, I've had it with this life, I'm done, right? Then we get into people judging. I don't like that either, right? We don't. So what you want to do is you want to widen the circle. You want to offer support. And if you're in a real crisis situation, then you have people around a lot. Like Joanne, you talked about how I got in this. My freshman year in college, I've been in school a month, 6 weeks. And a woman, how am I there? I don't know. A woman down the hall slices her wrist. I don't know how I got involved. I didn't really know, but I was a freshman. I remember holding that razor blade all night long, watching her sleep, right? And she was mortified. Of course she was mortified, right? That somebody had seen the depth of her pain, right? Now, right. And eventually she transferred out of the school, which I understood completely and entirely, but she was in. But how we run into this, and people say, I have a lot, when you work with teenagers, right? You guys know when you work with teenagers, teenagers, I want to die, or I want this, I want that. Okay, well, let's look at that. What are you really feeling? It's extreme emotion, right? And what you want to do by expanding the circle also is offer hope, or what can we do? Years ago, I'd been in corporate America, but then I was working at a clinic. And they said, oh, Adele, we're going to make a referral to you. This is a woman. She's attempted suicide 7 times. She just got out of a certain psychiatric hospital. The last time she took her life, her best friend was her German Shepherd dog. The dog never made it. She did. So the first time I meet her, she's all cranky and this and whatever. And okay, we're talking about things. I'm like, okay. And the second time I meet her is 180 degrees. This is a story of me not knowing anything. 180 degrees. And she's like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I'm like, well, this is wonderful. Terrific. And I get a phone call the next morning. After she left me, I think she went and bought alcohol and drugs and checked into one of those hourly motels.
Bad news.
I don't know if she had a party as well, but she did that and she took her life, right? Because she was bound and determined that she didn't want to be here anymore. And that's what she did, right?
Yeah.
What we do, we sit, we accept, we don't castigate, we don't criticize. We say, is there a way that I can help you? What would make you feel better? And sometimes they're at a really cranky, ornery place. Nothing is going to sound good, right? But you try to distract them. You know how music or certain movies, like I love the movie Love Actually. I don't know, it makes me happy. I like that movie. And sometimes you suggest this or you suggest that. But of course, you're also going to suggest mental health help. Do we need to take a trip to the hospital? Oh, no, is usually the answer to that. There's also, we have in this country, it's a lifeline and a text number, and it is 988, and 24 assistants at the end of that line, 988. So you can text or you can call. And so if you feel like you don't have anybody, or you don't not even feel, the reality is you don't have anybody, there's a lifeline out there, and there will be people to talk to, and you can call more than once. It's okay.
Wow.
And you can call saying, I'm just in this wiggly place, right? I don't know. I'm not sure how I'm feeling. Great. Call it. And there's specific lines for people who feel that they don't fit in. So we'll look at LGBTQ, right? And there's some more letters after that. I'm sorry, I don't know them all. There are specific lines for that as well, of people looking for assistance and support, because when you are shunned, when you are seen as less than, when you are bullied, right? And the bullying, right? Every parent I've talked to recently about bullying says to me, the schools aren't doing anything. They pay lip service to it, and they're not doing a freaking thing. And it keeps going on. It keeps going on. And that bullying will lead a kid who feels like, and that young brain, that it happens. Also with the young people, alcohol and drugs are a big part of it, right? And the biggest killer of people under 35 is suicide. The biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide.
Adele, I have a question, and I'm sure I'm speaking for many counselors out there, spiritual counselors, energy facilitators. I had a client that I was working on, and I never saw this coming, but she stood on the railroad tracks, waiting for the express train, and I always felt like I had to get therapy after that.
Well, of course.
Because I thought, what would you say to counselors, that feel like, how the hell did I miss this?
Well, I
could have done more.
Right. But people have to open the door, right, and show you and tell you, right? Yeah. Like the woman who came and said, I've changed my life. I've been in HIT and I'm all good. And I'm like, great. What I didn't know, and I never told you guys the punchline of that, was what I learned is when people all of a sudden change 180 degrees and are happy, pay attention. Pay attention, because sometimes they have so made up their mind and put things in order in their head, they're ready to go. And I didn't know that at the time, unfortunately. I didn't know enough to say, whoa, wait a minute. I was happy, she was happy. But to other people, if they keep it to themselves, and many people do, they hold it, it's like a marble that they roll around in their hand for a while.
Yep.
And sometimes it's just thinking about it gives them relief. Okay, I don't have to be here. And they don't plan to act on it. Sometimes, especially with the age of alcohol, drug, or some big event in their life, being fired, somebody wanting a divorce, sickness with a child, whatever, then they cross over to that place. And when they cross over to that place where they're actively thinking about suicide, their thinking is small, more than like binary. And when people say, how could they do this to me? And of the people I've worked with and talked to me, no offense, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking you will be better off without me. I've been a drag. I am in pain. I want to be out of pain. Because the only response to suicide is compassion. But there's a lot of guilt. Given all the centuries before, you're being arrested, we're taking your property, it must have been your fault. It's a matter of shame, right? And it's a matter of pain. It's not a matter of shame, but it has been viewed that way. So And for many people who are in the helping professions and give therapeutic aid, and counselors and psychologists and doctors sometimes are the most clueless of the lot, because it's not their venue. They're used to the physicality. We're going to, or let's give you the med and what have you.
Right.
I had one Friday night, I got a phone call at home. This is when we had landlines as well. And one of my clients found my number. I was listed. Okay. All right. And he said, okay, Adele, I want to chop off my penis with a knife. I said, oh, okay, well, that's not really a good idea. Tell me what's going on, right? So we're talking or whatever. And I said, I really want to get you into the hospital. I don't think you're safe. He goes, I don't want to go. I said, I understand. Let me find out if there's even a bed, okay? And I'm going to call you right back. So where I wanted to send him, there wasn't a bed until the next morning. I convinced him, and I said, will you call your parents? He was, I don't know, late 30s, early 40s, Ivy League educated, good corporate job, obviously struggling with some issues. And I said, will you call your parents, who were maybe half an hour, 40 minutes away, and see if they will take you to this hospital in the morning? And I said, we'll talk in the morning. We talk in the morning. And he's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I said, I know you don't want to go, but I want you to be safe, and I will come visit you. And let's get you safe, and let's get your med. And he was on some serious psych meds, and let's get your meds regulated, because that's another thing with people with serious psych issues, getting the meds regulated too. But to go back to, I'm sorry, I go off on tangents, Joanne, but what you would say to somebody is, you worked with what they gave you, what they were willing to show. They weren't willing to talk about it because maybe it scared them, or again, they wanted to hold it. It was like their safety net. I've got an out. You don't need to know what it is. I'm not necessarily telling you, right? But often you will find people say, when you're doing, a lot of people have suicidal ideation. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going. It just means, oh my God, I'm sick and tired. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to do, and I feel lousy about myself. Okay, are you open to meds? Do we need meds? Right? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Some of those meds cause side effects that bring this on, right? Some don't. What else can we do? Then we look at support. Who can you talk to, and all that other stuff.
Can you share with the audience, families, loved ones, that, as you said, they don't want to talk about it because they feel ashamed that this had occurred in their family or what, and especially with all of the vast religious upbringings that they put,
right.
They put this cloud on it that they're done. They're going to a dark, they did this, and I know, because you also have your psychic abilities and everything, that you connect with souls from the other side. They could share that with you. But that's such a heavy burden. I mean, besides losing your loved one, then you have that other blanket, societal religion.
Absolutely. You're so right.
Over you.
Yeah.
So how would you share with the audience, since this has been your expertise for so long that you're in this, to tell them something that it's not so?
I was told a story of a young boy who lost his dad to suicide. And he said the best thing that ever happened is that at the funeral service, the priest explained that his dad had an illness, but it wasn't an illness of the body, it was a mental illness. And the priest did such a lovely job of addressing the mental illness and taking away the stigma. And the kid was so happy he didn't have to explain it. And if he did have to explain it, he had some words. But when society looks at you, when religion and the mindset and the thinking that this is a sin, right? This is a sin. You're going to hell. Within the last year, an Orthodox family, and the young girl, 14, had been in and out of the hospital and everything else, and walked out of the house in the middle of the night and decided to walk into an oncoming car on the highway. Right? She had a lot of whatever, right? And the family dealing with what they had to do. So, all right. So let me get clear here. What exactly would I say to them? That they're going to have to be strong, that they're going to be educating people, and that you need to surround yourself with people who believe you and who support you, not those who are going to vilify you for something that's old thinking, and we're in new thinking. and you find it. But this is also why the suicide rate is high for people who've lost. A woman I know, we met when, I was presenting at Compassionate Friends, their national conference. It's for people who've lost children, just children have died, not. And everybody wore name tags, and they had the name of the person who died. I had a name tag, but I didn't have a name of somebody who died. It was a very curious thing for me. But this woman was telling me that when her son died by suicide, she tried a belt, the belt broke. She tried something else, it didn't work. She tried several times because she couldn't take the pain, and she just wanted to throw herself in the grave after him, right? That's how she was feeling. People are judgmental. And you have to get into that column of knowing I'm a lovely human being. I did the very best. I loved the way I knew how to love. And we think of Don Miguel Ruiz, who say, we do our best, whatever our best is every day, right? But that changes. So you surround yourself with people who understand this is very painful.
But the other thing, I'm sorry to interrupt. The other thing I say is, though, I think the point I was trying to make is to share with the audience, because we're connected with souls that have crossed.
Right.
In hell and damnation, they were ill mentally, and that they're in a place of now peace and love.
Yeah, and there's no hell or damnation. Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry, I missed the boat.
The families feel like, mea culpa, like, oh my God.
Yeah. You're right.
They're lost. They're gone, and they're in. I don't think that's the case.
I agree. I totally agree. And whether they work to do on the other side. And again, think of the soul contract that you're going to come in, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and your life is going to end that way by choice, right? That's how you do it. You go back to ancient Rome, ancient Japan. If you lost a battle, the soldiers, as a point of honor, took their lives, right? I see what you're saying. I guess for me, the disconnect is, how could I stay in a church that wouldn't accept me for who I am, or my family for who they are? But that's me, and I'm a little bit of a whatever. So if the church has been your family for decades and you want them to you find out, at least this is what people told me, that the church members don't talk to you about it, or they'll ignore you, or you feel shunned. Right. And that's another way of making somebody feel awful, is to be shunned. Or we're not talking to so-and-so because of whatever. Right. That's horrible. You say you're a God-fearing person, and this is how you treat someone. Oh, please. Right. But it's very hard if you're in a group that they think it's wrong. You're not. I don't know that you're going to change them. People get changed. They can change. But if they're holding on to their old thinking, I don't know what they're going to accept. But for the people, which is why someone I know lost her son. He was murdered. And the only way that she got through it was talking to mediums. That's the only way she got through it. Yeah. And and her husband wasn't so open to the idea, but she convinced him once, and it got him over the hump. And they're very, very Catholic, God-fearing people, right? But it was what allowed her. And her son now speaks to her because she's open to symbols, reading license plates, seeing things on the beach, whatever. If it's her birthday, his birthday, or his heaven day, as she calls his death day, right? And I did a lot of work with families who've lost children. And I walked into this one school where I was giving a talk, and they all have hanging up all the artwork. I'm sorry, I have something that's making me very itchy, so the energies are changing. Because if you're open to that, it's soothing, it's healing, it's understanding we're all part of a bigger, vast wave of things that we don't always understand. And that side of things, if you're open to it, that can hold you. Right? That can make sense. Those man-made strictures of religions and some cultures are very difficult to live by.
Adele, the one thing that I found from speaking to so many different therapists, counselor, they were saying that the one thing that they notice at funerals everyone always is saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And they said that only adds more sorrow to the situation. So sometimes you have to be more aware of just.
Right. And because people are, that's from a good-hearted place. They don't.
From a good-hearted place.
Right. Yeah, it's from a good-hearted place. And somebody I worked with had lost her child when she birthed the child. And at one point I just sent her a note and said, are you still standing? Right. Because that's kind of the deal. Are you still standing? Are you still getting through this? It's curious. A medium I know sent me someone to talk to, and she had lost her child by suicide, and in a hospital, no less, and mental health ward, the psych ward, and making sense of all of that and getting through it. And we humans, we're not so good with the tough emotions because it's not necessarily something that's promoted, right? How we deal with it.
You're at a loss for words.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
What do I say?
Yeah.
I think one of the best things you can say is, what can I do to help? I'm here for you.
Yeah. But when you're saying, I'm so sorry, it's also, I'm so sorry for your loss, right? And then you give them a big hug and you say, what can I do? And also we have found that people who are in grief, they're not going to, generally, they're not going to say you could do this or do that. Sometimes you do. This is on social media where there's a new thing of grief packages. In other words, food delivery services or restaurants or whatever. And they say, hey, are you going to be home today at whatever? And they go, yeah, okay. And they send something, and it's so, whether it's Oreos, ice cream, chicken noodle soup, whatever the deal is that they know, and they don't have to think about it. And I think it's a very sweet, practical way of showing support. And sometimes you just stand with somebody and you let them cry, and you're shit with them and you let them cry. And if they want to be held, or you hold their hand or whatever. And people get embarrassed crying in front of other people, right? Mm-hmm. And years ago, I was in a situation where there was a great tragedy, and the person who experienced walked in the door, and unbidden, all I did was start crying. I'm crying. And she later said that was the best response I could have ever given her.
Yeah.
Because
what can you say?
Yeah, so you just do heart to heart, and you and back to Arlene's thing about these societal things of churches or families who this, and we're not going to talk about, the family's like, we're going to lie, right? We're going to lie about it. We're not going to tell anybody. Boy, does that promulgate stuff. And it's going to poke its head out one way or another down the road, right? And there is no shame. They were in pain. It was the route they choose. And then again, we think, oh, they have terrible mental illness, but they also could have been such a strong soul that I'm teaching compassion. I'm working with a woman now who has terrible, terrible, terrible health issues. So much so, she wants to die. And I keep reminding you, you're teaching your family compassion. They're still not getting it every day, even after all these years. But
yeah. One of the things I was told never to say to someone is, I know just how you feel. Damn it. No, you don't. You don't know how I feel.
I know, but that's our social.
But that's the human being.
Yes, we want to say, okay.
Or we want to one up them. Oh, but I never forget when I
did something. This was some years back, and he was young. It was a good friend's relative, anyways. So he was in the hospital, and I went up to him, and he knew me, smiled, said hi, tried to lighten it up. And I said to him, I said, I don't know if this is true. I said, but I've heard this. If you decide to do this at this stage right now, guess what? I heard you come back here, and you have to pick up and go on forward from there. I said, doesn't that suck? I said, who the heck would want to come back and do this over again? You know what? I don't know if it was the word.
But no, but I will tell you,
he's fine. And knock out what he went out and is thriving. Yeah. Is thriving.
A world famous psychic that I know was telling me the story of young people saying take their lives by suicide. And so she said, your fruit, and what it means, whatever. And when they understood the bigger, grander picture of it all, they all went, oh, never mind, right? But also when you're young, it is so black and white, and you have no idea that you're going to fall down 85,000 times, and you're going to get up 85,001 times, and continue. It's just, you learn by all of this. But when you're young, it there's the immediacy and the pain and the angst and the not fitting in, and then the kids who dare each other, right? That they do these life-threatening things and they dare each other.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say. You know what I mean? I was there, and it just kind of came out.
Yeah. Well, that was a gift. You gave. Well, that's so you gave him a gift. You were his angel. Yeah, you were his angel. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Adele, I noticed you did say, we brought this up before. Joanne said death by suicide rather than committed suicide. And
what's the difference?
What's
committed suicide is considered insensitive. It's not the nice thing to say anymore. You'll notice the news has changed in recent years. Committed goes back to when it was, against the law. You were arrested if you attempted. You were shunned. You were kicked out of your village. I mean, there is so much shame attached to suicide, right? So we don't say that anymore because it's not nice, right?
I wasn't aware of that.
Well, no, I know, Sweet Pea. I know. I mean, and so we now say died by suicide. But you have to.
We learned something today, and our audience has learned.
Well, I still no, but I still practice because we were all brought up with the committed suicide. So now
it comes out,
and you don't think, and you go, but I've noticed how the newspapers, news reporters have changed, and how they're talking about it, right? Because they are doing that. You look at, there was the woman in Europe, had years of sexual abuse, had all sorts of mental health issues, and she went before this board, I believe it was in Switzerland, I could be wrong, to end her life, with the end of life thing. And they approved it. And the press got a hold of this and were, ooh. But yeah, I have done so much work with people who have been through tortures of the damned with extreme sexual abuse and what it did to them and where she was and whatever. And this woman was 80 pounds, not to whatever, couldn't get and they approved it, right? They approved it. And
can I ask, I'm sorry to interject with that though.
Go.
Have you worked with clients? Have you worked with clients and family on this?
I worked with people who have wanted it. We are not in a state that has it. One woman said to me, she's like 90. She lived her whole life. She told me her whole story. Lives in assisted living. She kick-ass, fabulous woman. And I said, well, it's not like they're going to hand you a little blue pill, right? There's a process and you have to whatever and this and that. Because she wanted to control when she was going. And that's why when people say, I'd like a suicide kit, right? What they mean is, I want the option, if the time comes, I know that if I take these 3 or 6 or whatever it is, I have no idea. If you take this, that you can end your life peacefully. And I know a woman in another state who had a very bad diagnosis. She decided she called her adult children. They all came to visit. She told them what she was going to do. Needless to say, they were trying to talk her out of it, but she said, no, this is my choice. This is what I want to do. You need to honor me or not, but this is what I'm going to do. And sent them away and told them it was going to happen in the coming months. It wasn't a matter where they were going to be around her bedside. She didn't think that was what she wanted to do. And at some point down the line with her partner, that's what she did. And she made that choice. And people are saying, if people like the idea of having control, having the power, medically, when you're looking at people going through the tortures of the damned, what some people can go through with their diagnoses and what have you, and they say, I'm done. They talk it over with their family. They do whatever. It's not a rash decision. This is what I want to do. And I know a group of people in another state, and there are a lot of doctors in this particular group. And, they all said, we've got our suicide kits, right? So if we get to that place, we know what we want to do. That that is their choice to do that, right? And would I spend my time talking them out of it? No. If they wanted to talk about it, I would talk about it, of course. If they wanted to weigh the pros and cons, did I think it was a good time or a bad time, I would do that. But ultimately, that's their choice. And when they're doing it in their right mind, when you're not in a super angry or a very hysterical, it's a well-considered, planned out thought that's been discussed with family, right? Okay, right, yeah, well, that's, I think we're going to see more of this. I think we're going to see more of this coming down the line. But the younger people, right, and you've got so much drugs, alcohol and drugs, and the percentages are enormous with the younger people with that piece, and that changes your thinking, right? That changes your thinking. And then the number one way people go by suicide, because the majority are men, I think 3 times more than women, something like that. I went and looked up the current statistics, something like 3.85 times more, is by gun, right? Number 2 way usually is by poison. No, hanging. Sorry, with men. Women, it's poison. But everybody can do whatever they want to do. But if there are ways to figure it out. But I will tell you, I have been asked by people to tell them how they can do it. I don't have that information. I don't want to say fascinated, sounds ghoulish. I'm curious is a better word choice, but that's not where I'm going to spend my energies. That's not for me. I think it's very much an individual choice, and whatever works for you. And but the world is hard, and sometimes you get it. When you know somebody who's been through a terrific health battle. I had a friend. I was in North Carolina, and I got there, and they said, "Okay." And nothing else we can do and whatever. And it was Easter. I got there on Good Friday. On Easter Monday, they gave her a shot of more. And then I said, "You have to leave the room." I said, "Hell no, I'm not leaving." They gave her. And then I saw one nurse nodding to the other. I didn't know what that nod meant exactly, because I was like, "What's going on?" That meant, yes, we're still here. No, we're not here. It took 15 minutes. And because when I arrived in North Carolina, this woman was intubated out of it, and she'd been through a terrible health journey, right? And that's where they were. But the medical staff was wonderful, right? And I didn't even know that they could do that, quite frankly. That was how, and this was a lot of years ago, 15 years ago. But I didn't know that they could do that they could just say, "We're going to give you a shot of morphine," and that's it. I didn't know it was that open, I guess.
Yeah. I think the one thing we can take from all of this, Adele and Arlene, is that every case is completely different.
You're right.
Every case is completely different.
You're right. And every case, just meet it with compassion of where you are.
Exactly.
And if somebody's in a bad suicidal place, and I'll give you a couple, you were saying, I worked with a gentleman. He was in a bad suicidal place. I said, "Okay, all right." I said, "Before you do this, you need to write he was divorced. You need to write letters to your kids." Psycho Adele. I said, No. He said, "You'll tell them." I said, No, they're not going to want to hear from me. You need to tell them, write letters to your kids. Now I'm smiling as I say this, because I knew he couldn't do that to his kids. And I bought some time, and I moved him out of that place, right? I moved out. Sometimes there's a little distraction to insert a little space, insert a little time, a little breathing room when somebody is in that intense place. You allow them to be who they are, but just sometimes we're going to do a little distraction, right? And it was a good idea. It's not that it was a bad idea, because his kids would want to know,
right?
But it would have been too heartbreaking for him to do. And the reason that he wanted to stay alive, of course, was for his kids.
Adele, in closing, is there anything that we might do to prevent suicide as a whole in society?
Well, we've heard of IQ. We know what CQ is, cultural quotient, developing that and understanding that, especially in today's world. And there's EQ, the emotional quotient. And there's some famous writer who said in life, "Be kind, be kind, be kind." It is, we need to be kind. We need to be the anti-bully. We need to stand up and act in a way we're these beings of light. We raised our soul hands to be here. And this planet was an experiment. Why? Because we have emotions and to feel these emotions, right?
Exactly.
So let's calibrate our emotions to the best they could be. Yes, we're going to have our bad days. Yes, we can be in a snit, but towards others, work on being kind, and certainly the bullying, and if you know someone being bullied, right, step in. That's not okay. Parents teaching their kids to fight instead of dealing with the bullying stuff and whatever, not a good idea, right? So I think we do, if we become kinder and gentler, which is a mouthful given today's world. I know it sounds very, very simple, but each of us have had the experience of somebody doing a small, seemingly inconsequential something that lifted us, lightened us, and changed us.
Right.
And we're all about energy. And how do we change that energy? We come from our heart. We do what we can do. And when we change one person, they might change somebody else in return. The trickle effect.
I always say, do this, smile.
Yeah. Yeah. And psychoneuroimmunology will say that smiling, and if you're into acupuncture and the meridians, even the half smile does something about opening these meridians too. So it's always a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Treat people with kindness. That is.
We all want, we want to be treated the way we would like to be treated. Treat people the way we'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
So, Adele, in closing, you wrote a different kind of book by suicide. And how is that different?
Well, it's Making Peace with Suicide is a book of hope, understanding, and comfort. Because it has personal stories from people. It's just not me going on. It's more stories of how I got through when my brother died by suicide. A woman in Ohio grew up in a household with a lot of abuse, a lot of hospitalizations, and she ends up overnight or in for a stay at a hospital, and just a long time ago. And she's in a ward that's women, and they're all gathered in some day room, and all the women had agreed, okay, next time we know when we really want to take ourselves out, we're going to use a gun. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get a gun and use a gun. And in comes this woman, and she has a ragged X here. She had taken a gun to herself. She ended up in the ER. The guy doing the stitching wasn't doing it thinking kind thoughts of her, let's put it that way. And they all looked at her as a cautionary tale that we all thought the gun would work, but it doesn't always work, does it? And it gave them all pause. And this other woman with the X in her third eye to carry with her for the rest of her life, of a reminder of what had happened, right?
Yeah.
Why? I'm sorry, I go off on stories and I forgot where we were going. but
why your book is different.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, why my book is different. Because other people are going on and on instead of me. No, but there's also there's a healing thing, and there's also the spiritual component. Yes. Right. And the spiritual component of the higher life, the woman who said, I'm doing other work on the other side. My friend who died in North Carolina, I'm whispering her to something I just read about Mars. I said, I'm guessing this is where you're going because I just read this. So, and that she's out there, right, doing that work, because we forget we're part of something so much bigger than we realize.
No, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. This was, I learned a lot.
You're one of the people we're going to be having back on and on for different topics. I hope you come back.
Well, yes. I mean, this. You were brave, ladies. This is a tough topic. It's not an easy topic, but it's out there and it's real. And and one thing I'm going to say in closing, and then you can, people say people are cowards when they take their life by suicide. So if I'm in front of you, Joanne, you, Arlene, and I put pillows over your faces, are you going to lie back? Hell no. You're going to fight me with all the strength you have, because that is our normal thing. So to decide to end your life, your pain is that big. It is that big that you override all of your natural instincts. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of extreme pain. And from my way of thinking, and it tells us places where we can do better. It tells us where we can be kinder, we can be nicer, right? I'm talking about more of the psychological as opposed to people with medical issues that get to that place. There's different reasonings, right? But for people who forget who they are, that they are a soul and they raise their hand to be here. The human experience might stink out loud right now, but they're here to kick some ass, and we'd like to see that as opposed to going to their funeral.
Thank you again. This is fabulous.
All right, lovies, thank you for having me. Very brave.
Thank you for sharing all of these pearls of wisdom. And it is a difficult topic, but something that we felt that need to be addressed.
Right.
Other ones that we want to have you come back on, because you're our token token psychologist who keeps the balance. So we'll have you on multiple times. So I would like to thank everyone for watching with your eyes, hearing with your ears. And as I tell everybody, get out of this, which people are listening, I'm pointing to my head, get out of your head space and go into your heart space. Right. And we're all here to lift each other up. Right, Joanne?
Yes, thank you.
To see the light in each other. And I always say smile. It changes everything. You know? And if you feel like you don't want to do it to a person, it does make a difference. And be the beautiful beacons of light that you are and shine it out into the world, because we need it so desperately.
And be kind. We need more kindness in this world, especially
we
now.
need more kindness and patience, which, you know, so.
Thank you, Adele.
We're here.
Thank you, ladies.
We're here every Wednesday. The first Wednesday of the month, I do a prayer healing meditation for the world. Please tune in, because we need that, and it spreads out in multiple eyes out there. And please sign below to subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. There's a nice, beautiful button that Victor made for us, so it's bigger, so you could just click on that. Please, right, Joanne, leave comments.
And share. Share
it. We want to grow. I don't want to grow this way. I am. I'm trying to get rid of that, but we want to grow the channel. Leave your comments. Let us know what topics you'd like to hear about. So we're here every Wednesday. And again, Adele will be back for various topics that we'll be bringing up. Thank you. Thank you, Jolene.
Thank you, Arlene.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Take care.
Thank you, Adele.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.